I'm Jana with Purl Together, and in this part 2 video of our Brioche Basics Scarf Knit Along, we're going to learn how to increase and decrease and some other stuff, including tinking when I made a mistake. This is not your Netflix knitting. It's really a little bit challenging. I will also provide some timestamps so that if you want to skip ahead and not watch me fix some of my mistakes, you don't have to do that. So let's just say I had trouble with row 15, and that's okay. You know what happens? Some days the knitting gods are smiling and other days they're not. So that's all right. Okay, before we get started, I want to express my gratitude for all my patrons. There's several people that have joined me over on Patreon recently, and I'm super thankful for that. So if you're interested in checking that out, go to patreon.com/Purl Together. All right, let's get after it. All right, we're on section 2 where we're going to begin doing some increases and decreases in order to form an X at the bottom of our scarf. So on the light side with the light color or color A, knit 3. That's the beginning of our I cord. And then we're going to brioche knit the first one. Okay, and then do our slip yarn over, which is forward yarn over. And then you'll notice this little section that says brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit, or bark yo bark. So that's how we're going to increase some stitches. So we're going to go brioche knit into here, but don't take it off the needle yet. Give yourself a little slack, do a yarn over here, and then brioche knit back into the same stitch. So we've done a bark your bark. And we've increased 2 stitches out of that one. Slip 1 yarn over. Now we need to place a marker here. We've placed our marker, and now we need to do a decrease that slants to the left. So this one is called a brioche left slant decrease, or BRLSL, brioche left slant. So in order to do that, we're going to slip this first brioche stitch as if to knit. Then we're going to knit this brioche knit and this purl stitch that we would normally slip. We're going to knit those together, and then we're just going to slip this back over the top. Simple. And the reason that is a left leaner is because we slipped that left brioche knit over the top, and that made it dominant, so that's going to show, and it covers up the purl stitches that are the contrasting color underneath. So that's going to look pretty cool. Now we're going to do our slip yarn over next, and brioche knit, slip yarn over 9 times total. Okay, we've completed the brioche knit and slip yarn over 9 more times. Now we're going to do a brioche right slanting decrease. So this column here is going to end up leaning to the right, and we're decreasing stitches at the same time. You want to slip the first stitch knitwise, just as we did when we decreased to the left, but this one's going to end up being a little bit different. So we're going to knit the next stitch. Despite the fact that that's a purl, go ahead and do exactly what it says and knit the next stitch. All right, pass the first slip stitch back over that, like so. And then we're going to put this on the left-hand needle, being careful not to twist anything. And then we're going to take this next brioche stitch and pass it over that one. Okay, but that makes a right slant. You can see how that makes that dominant row cover up the purl column there in between, and everything leans to the right. All right, we're going to place another marker here. Okay, then we're going to slip yarn over just as we have been. And we're going to do another increase, because if you have to have everything balanced and paired. So we did an increase over here, then a decrease. Now we're going to do a decrease and an increase, so we still have our same stitch count in the end. So again, the brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit, or bark yo bark. You go in to do your brioche knit as normal, but don't slip it off, and then do a yarn over, and then brioche knit into that again. So that's really very simple. And we've increased a stitch as well. Actually, we've increased 2 stitches because we've decreased 2 stitches with the right and the left leaners. All right, carry it on to the end of that row. Yarn forward, slip, or slip yarn over, and then just brioche knit the last one, and then bring your yarn forward, and we slip the last 3 I-cord stitches the same way we have been. Okay, now we need to continue on with our light side dark color yarn and do our second pass of that first row. First row of this section, that is. All right, so this is light side dark color. Still in row 1, second pass. So we're going to knit the first 3. Okay, slip 1 yarn over, brioche purl. Okay, now we've come to where we've done that increase before. Slip 1, yarn over, purl the center of that 3 stitch little sequence there, and then we're going to slip 1 yarn over. The pattern says I should have a brioche purl here, but I suspect I've inadvertently dropped my yarn over, which would have been this contrasting color right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick that up because it should look like that if it's a brioche purl. And I suspect I dropped that when I was fussing about with the marker or at some point. So then you're going to slip the marker, slip 1 yarn over, brioche purl, slip 1 yarn over all the way across to your next marker. And we're going to end that with a slip 1 yarn over and slip the marker. Okay. Now brioche purl, slip 1 yarn over, slip 1 yarn over. We should be purling the center section of this little 3 increase here, and slip 1 yarn over, brioche purl, slip 1 yarn over, and slip these last 3 I-cord stitches at the end. All right, well done. Now we turn our work. All right, now similarly, if you were decreasing, normally when you decrease in regular knitting, not brioche knitting, but regular knitting, when you decrease, you usually have a decrease round and then a knit plain round, a decrease round and knit plain round, like, you know, when you're decreasing for the toe of a sock, for example. So this is really not that different. Where we're going to knit now, we're going to go back and forth once just regularly in our brioche knitting, and we're not going to have any increases or decreases for this particular row. On the pattern, if you look at row 2 of the dark side, light color, row 2, dark side, dark color, those are just straight up just like we've been doing so far. And what I'm referring to in the pattern is right here. Section 2, it's the center section here, which is the dark side, which in regular knitting would be the equivalent of the purl side, or the wrong side. So go ahead and complete that. That's no different than we've been doing so far up here. So go ahead and complete the dark side on your own, and I'll meet you back here when we have some more of the increases and decreases on row 3. I've completed row 2. So now I have both of my yarns together on the left side, and I'm going to turn my work and begin row 3, light side light color. So again, we're going to have some more increases and decreases here. We're going to start off again with the lighter color. Knit your 3 I-cord stitches as before. Okay, and we're going to brioche knit, slip 1 yarn over until we get to 2 stitches before the marker. And once again, we're going to increase into this brioche stitch by going brioche knit, but don't take it off. Do a yarn over here, and then brioche knit into it again. And go ahead and remove it that time. So we've increased 2 stitches out of that one. I'm going to tink that back because I think I split a stitch, or it looks a little funky. So I'm not quite sure what I've done wrong here. Okay, let's try that again. So if something feels weird, you know, never hesitate to go back and adjust. Okay, yarn over and brioche knit into that same stitch again. And then we're going to slip 1, yarn over, and we're to the marker. So slip the marker, then we're going to do a left slanting brioche decrease. So we slip this as if to knit these next 2 together, and then pass the slipped stitch over, keep that little marker out of the way, pass this back over the top, so we have our left leaning, left slanting decrease. Okay, we'll slip this one, and we have 1, 2, 3 stitches with their yarn overs before this next marker. And we're going to do a right slanted decrease here. So again, same as before, slip these 2 as if to knit. Go ahead and knit into this next one. Slip this one back over the top. Place this on the left needle, and then we're going to slip these over the top. Okay, now put the whole thing back onto the right hand needle, slipping that marker. Slip yarn over the next stitch. And then right away in this next stitch, we're going to do our increase, bark, yo, bark, brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit, and then go ahead and continue our sequence until we get to the last 3 stitches, where we're just going to slip them with the yarn in front as we have before for the I-cord. So you can see what's starting to happen here. These increases and decreases are going to increase the stitches on the outsides of the marker as we create our X, and it's going to, you know, obviously make a beeline toward the center here. All right, I've slid the stitches back to the other side of the needle because now we have to come back across with the dark side, the dark yarn, pardon me, on the light side. Knit your 3 I-cord stitches, and then we're just going to continue in sequence, and we're just going to deal with the decreases as we come along. So I need to slip, yarn over, purl, slip, yarn over, purl, and when you come to the increases, which will be these 3 stitches, these 3 little stitches grouped right together like this, and I might have 4. I'm not sure what I've done wrong here. Oh, I had an extra loopy on my yarn over is what I did there. So the first one, we've just done a brioche purl. So you know you're going to slip the next one, right? And then we're just going to purl that middle one because we're setting ourselves up to have it be a brioche knit, the one that slipped as a brioche on the brioche knit side next time. And then we're going to slip this one, yarn over and burp, and then carry on across to the next marker. All right, I'm up to the next marker and I've done my slip, yarn over, and then slip the marker. Now we're going to brioche purl, and we've encountered our increase from before as well. So we just did a brioche purl, so we're going to slip that next one, yarn over, purl the center stitch of our increase sequence, slip, yarn over, brioche purl until you get to the last 3 stitches, just as before. Slip, yarn over, yarn, and our yarn's in front for us to slip these last I-cord stitches. Awesome, we're ready to turn our work. Okay, that's starting to look really cool. Now we're on the dark side with the light colored yarn. As before, the second half of this row is just the same. Just keep doing what we've been doing. So that acts as our plain row between our increases and decreases. All right, I've completed rows 1 through 4 of section 2, and you can really see the X starting to, the bottom of it starting to emerge and point inward. So that's looking pretty cool. So we're just going to repeat row 3 and 4 a total of 3 times more. All right, as you can see, our X is almost halfway done. You can see we're about to meet up here in the middle. So this next bit is going to be a decrease in which we decrease 4 stitches. So you can see right here in the middle we have a total of 5 stitches. So we have this brioche knit, a purl, brioche knit, purl, brioche knit. So the center knit is what we're going to focus on here, and all these 5 stitches are going to decrease down to just 1 here in the center. Before we get to that little bit of knitting wizardry, what we want to do is just carry on in pattern, knitting our 3 I-cord stitches and going across until 2 before the marker. All right, this is the light side with color A, I've just gone across in pattern as we've been doing, and I'm 2 stitches before the marker. Just as we've been doing, I'm going to do a brioche increase right here in this next brioche knit stitch. So go in, brioche knit, leave it in there, yarn over, and do another. All right, slip one yarn over. Now slip the marker. Now the next thing we're going to do here is we have these 5 stitches and we want to decrease them all down. Now the way we're going to accomplish that is focused on the center, and we're going to overlap everything. So it's kind of like pastry layers, keeping in the brioche theme. We have this center bit here, and we're going to have a 1 layer on top, then another, then another, then another, until we get, actually that was too many fingers, but you'll see what I mean. They're all going to lay on top of this center stitch here in just a second. But the first thing we're going to do is slip this as if to knit, and we're going to slip the next one as if to knit also. Then we're going to take this center brioche stitch that we've been talking about and slip it off onto a locking stitch marker. You can use a cable needle if you want to. Use whatever you have, but you're going to want to slip this center stitch with its yarn over. Make sure you get them both off and try not to split them like I did. There we go. Okay, and then that just needs to hang there in the front for a moment. All right, so now we have our center stitch hanging down with its yarn over, and we've slipped these knitwise onto the right hand needle, and we have our 2 remaining ones off on the left needle. So the next thing we're going to do is knit the next stitch. So we're going to bring this across the back of both of these that we've slipped, and we're going to knit the next one. Now we're going to lift the one that we slipped in already. We're going to take this one here. Push your work to the tip of your needles, it makes it a little easier. And we're going to overlap that. We're going to slip it over the top of the stitch we've knitted. Okay. Then we're going to slip the next stitch on the left needle and lift it over this stitch that we have going here that we've just knitted as well. So take this and lift it over. See how we're layering stuff onto that? Actually, I find it easier to move that working stitch back over to the right hand needle, and we're going to slip this brioche knit over the top. Okay, now we have everything over the top of here, except now we have to deal with this one that we have hanging out here on the locking marker. We want to put this back up, orient it so that it's exactly the way it was when you took it off. Now I know that I put the pointy part in from the right and I scooped it off. You can also tell that just because this is the predominant color on this side. So you want it to be back up on the needle, oriented correctly. So the stitch needs to be mounted correctly with its yarn over. Then, you guessed it, we're going to slip it over this stitch we've been working with. So now everything is slipped over that, and that lays nicely in the center. So if you look at that, everything comes to a point and the center column lays on top. I will upload a whole separate video with different steps with brioche, including this 4-stitch brioche decrease. So slip that back over to the right hand side because now we're done with it, and slip your marker as well. All right, now we're going to yarn forward, slip 1 yarn over, and we're going to carry on in the pattern that we've been doing, where we're going to increase in this stitch again, just like before. Do your yarn over, go back in and brioche knit again. Okay, slip 1 yarn over, brioche knit, and carry on to your end of your row. Okay, doesn't that look pretty cool? So that, I mean, I know this needs to be blocked properly and that's a little distorted there, but yeah, that looks kind of neat. Let's see how it looks on the other side. Now, the other side, at least with the yarn that I chose, is certainly not as pronounced. So for me, there really is a right side and wrong side. If I had not chosen the variegated, then that would be much more pronounced as it is on this side, but that's okay. I kind of like it. All right, so now we're scooting our project back to the other side because we have to bring along the dark color on the light side. If you're following along exactly on the pattern, I am on row 11, light side, dark color. All right, I've just finished the second half of row 11. So rows 12 and 13 are just the same as we've been doing. And then, so go ahead and complete that, and I'll meet you back for the 4-stitch increase that we're going to do in the center. We'll end up doing that on the light side row again, and then our X will come back out. Okay, I'm back after having knitted rows 12, 13, and 14, and now we're going to begin the second half of the X, which is going to have it go back out this way. So we're really not crossing in the middle, it's just a decrease to a point and then increasing back out. So we're going to just carry on in pattern until we get to 4 stitches before the marker. All right, in order to make our brioche right slant decrease, we're going to slip this first brioche knit as if to knit, knit the next stitch, and then the one we slipped, we want to lift it right up and over the one that we knitted, and then take this over to the left hand needle, right? And this whole brioche knit needs to come up and over to the right, okay? And then put everything back over on the right hand side. And there's our right leaning, our right slanting decrease. Okay, after we slip the marker, rather than just knitting this one in the middle, we need to increase everything back out. So we're going to actually make a whole bunch more stitches out of this center one, our brioche knit increase, where we go in as if to knit and leave it on there, do the yarn over, brioche knit again. Now that's how we would have normally done our increase, but we're going to just do that one more time. So yarn over again and knit into it again. Okay, so we've, instead of just a brioche knit, we've actually made 5 stitches out of that one. So we've increased by 4. So now we need to do our slip one, yarn over, brioche knit, and carry on to the end of the row. All right, on the second half of row 15, we're on the light side, but using the dark colored yarn, and we're gonna slip one yarn over, brioche purl all the way across in pattern as you would expect. And then we get to the marker. So now we need to deal with our increase, all those increased stitches, and work those into our pattern. So I've just finished a brioche purl or burp. So the next thing I'm going to do is slip one, yarn over, and normally we would brioche purl, but we don't have a brioche, so we're just going to do a regular purl here. And then we're going to slip one, yarn over, brioche purl, slip one, yarn over. So we're just creating our pattern here, and then brioche purl, and we're back on track with the second half of this sequence all the way to the end. Now row 16 is just back and forthing as you would expect. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to show you a mistake that I made. So when I came back on row 15, we knitted until we got to the 4 before the marker, and I did the brioche right slanting increase, and then I did the big increase in the middle where we added the extra stitches. But while I was teaching you to do that, I neglected to do the slant to the left. So now I'm going to show you how to tink brioche. So both of my working yarns are on the same side, and I'm going to slip these stitches back over. So this is super helpful if you have both of your yarns on the same side. While we knit brioche one yarn at a time, I'm going to tink them back together. And we can do that by just, pulling them up a little bit. You can see that that's a purl. You want to go in under both of those strands. And the darker yarn is just one strand because we wrapped the other. So if you just do this carefully, it will save you a little bit of time. You can see that that's a purl, and I'm going to go in right under there. And I'm going to slip that one off, take the darker yarn around the back because that one was just your slip one yarn over. There's the knit and the purl, and this is much faster to go tink back this way than doing the yarns one at a time. So when you make a mistake, hopefully you don't, but if you make a mistake, you can tink back more quickly this way. And it also helps you to learn to read your brioche knitting. Okay, I'm going to take a minute and take a look at exactly how far I need to go back. And I think I just need to go on this other side, on the other side of the marker section, like to here-ish. Since I'm taking row 16 back all at once, I know that I'll be starting row 15 where I made my mistake. I'll be starting that right after the marker where I should have done that slanted decrease to be in keeping with the pattern. So all of this is to say that we all make mistakes, and if learning to correct them is clearly just as important as learning to knit brioche to begin with. Okay, so let's take a look here. I'm going to go ahead and slip this stitch back over because I want to have both my yarns on the right needle. All right, I tinked back all of row 16, so now I'm at the end of row 15, and as if I have finished the light side, the light yarn and the dark yarn of row 15. But I know that I made the mistake halfway through when I was working with the light colored yarn or color A, so I need to go ahead and tink back just the dark colored yarn in order to get that out of the way so that I can go about fixing, so I can go about fixing where I made the mistake using the light yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and slip my I-cord stitches back onto the left needle and just tink back only the dark yarn for now. Again, that's because I know I made the mistake when I was using the light colored yarn or color A. So this was my brioche purl, and that's easy enough to just take that part back. Okay, I took the dark yarn back to the center. I don't think I need to take it all the way back because this is all just fine. But then I'm slipping my stitches back on the right needle so that I can tink back the light colored yarn only. And here it is. I can leave my I-cord stitches on the left side, and I'm just going to tink back the light colored yarn now. So now I'm working with the light colored yarn on row 15. I'm going to go back and refer to my directions because my mistake occurred right after the marker. Right after I finished all that massive increasing. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and take it all the way back to the marker. And there's our slip. Okay. Now I'm back to the marker, so I'm going to refer back to row 15 to see where I went awry. Okay, after we slip the marker, we slip one yarn over, and now I should have done a left slanting decrease. Flip with this brioche knit as if to knit. Then we're going to knit the next two together, the brioche knit plus this one we would have normally slipped. Knit those two together. And then the stitch that we slipped before, we're going to pass it over. So then that ends up dominant on top and leans to the left. And then carry on in pattern. Okay, so I'll finish this light colored yarn and get to the end of the row. And then I'll go back and bring along the dark colored yarn that I had tinked back that's now just waiting for me like in the middle. Now in order to do that, now I've got this hanging out in the middle, so all I need to do is work all my stitches to the end like I normally would, and then I'll slip the first half on here to get to my working yarn. So while I know that all seem like a big tinking pain in the butt, it is certainly easier than actually removing the markers and frogging or tearing out stitches. And it's also good practice to learn to read your knitting. Okay, there's the one that I've just done a brioche purl with. Because I'm using the dark colored yarn, that's the purl side. So then I'm going to slip, and I'm back on track with my brioche purl sequence here. Okay, so I hope that's helpful to see how to tink back if you discover that you make a mistake. Hopefully that doesn't happen that often. This is really not Netflix knitting unless you're more advanced or have brioche experience. But you can see that it is kind of a pain to fix if you make a mistake. So it's worth obviously paying attention to start with. All right, so now I've gone back and finished row 15. Finished fixing row 15. Now I'm going to move on. Row 16 is just a regular brioche knit and purl row. And then rows 17 and 18 are the slanted decreases as you've seen before. So I'm going to go ahead and knit through 16, 17, 18, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, I've finished row 17 and 18, all the repeats, to where I have the decreases back out to the edges and my X is symmetrical. So now my dilemma is whether I want to continue the pattern as written and only have the X's on the very ends of the scarf, or whether I want to continue this pattern throughout the entire scarf, just doing a few rows of brioche knit in between and then beginning the X pattern again. So if you're wondering about that, you can go look at the projects on Ravelry and see what that looks like, or you can just choose to do straight up brioche knitting for the body of the scarf and then just repeat this X pattern on the other end. So I'll get back to you on that, whether I'm kind of leaning towards doing the X's. So we'll see. All right, you guys, that was a lot. That was a lot to learn. So now we're going to knit through the middle of the scarf, whether you choose to do the X's and the increasing and decreasing throughout the body of the scarf, or whether you just want to practice your basic brioche skills and knit it straight and do the X on the other end. So now you're more comfortable with the pattern. It might be a good opportunity to carry on with those X's through the center portion of the scarf. Meet me next time for a cast off. It's going to be a couple of weeks though, because next week, the first Tuesday of the month, will be our block of the month tutorial. So I'll do that, and then we'll get back to the scarf after that. I'm also going to be uploading some short videos that will show these brioche techniques independently. So if you want to view those a little bit slowed down, check out the Brioche playlist for that. All right, as always, I appreciate your support. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the groups. Take care.